Okay, John Orts here, Montgomery County Tea Party. It is Saturday, November 8th, 11 a.m., and we are here with Adrian Kaiser. With me is Bob Bagley and Kenneth Ernest, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, as we discussed, if you would like, take up to 5 minutes on your opening, and then we'll do Q&A for about 45 minutes, and then we'll up to 45 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up after that with
Alrighty.
a 5 minute closing.
Alrighty.
All right, the floor is yours.
So, decided to run for county commissioner for multiple reasons. The biggest one has been flooding and road construction. I live right off of Hardin Store Road, and for 20 something years, they've needed at least it either widening or just repaved, and the current guy in the job has not done it. He's promised it a few times, but never done it. That was a big issue for me, especially when my kids were attending school. My wife lived on that. Bumpy roads were just not helpful to the car, and having to pay more for all sorts of expenses on that just because of how terrible it is. And then flooding, trying to get in and out of certain areas, especially along Hardin Store, you can't get out if it rains because it just floods like nobody's business out there. uh, Overdevelopment has been a big issue, but there's a way we can develop without overdeveloping and without burdening the people who live out there. Want to work with the developers to figure out how we can make them responsible for building the roads, the drainages, all that stuff that's going to impact the residents that already live here.
And where is that?
The Hardin Store Precinct 2 area. It's
Okay.
near 249.
All right.
What my experience in that is after high school, I graduated from high school with a welding certification. I got directly out of high school. I started working at my father's tree farm, horticulture business, landscaping company after when I was 13 years old. Worked there every summer until I graduated. Once I graduated, he actually gave me partial control of it. So me and him were co-owners of that place. We sold that in 2019 when we sold our property, just because it was not feasible for us to move everything, um, get new water lines, everything drilled up. It just wasn't feasible. So we decided to sell it off, be done with it. Aside from that, I also worked on his construction company, fixing the structural integrity of roll-off containers. If you've ever remodeled a house, you know what the roll containers they put out front are. That's the ones that I used to fix and still repair to this day. I was also the shop manager where I worked organizing every aspect of his tools, all the supplies, everything that we needed to make that business successful. I was the organizer of that. And I also got mechanicing experience. I learned big roll-off trucks, how to fix those. Also heavy machinery, including excavators and bulldozers. Not the best at it, but I can diagnose and fix a problem if it's an easy one. If it's something major, I at least know people that know how to fix it. All of that gives me a perspective of actually hands-on experience of what it's required to do the job that I'm seeking. It's going to be a tough one. There's a lot of people. There's a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of new businesses, a lot of development going on. But with my ability to look and see and understand the problems that we're facing, along with my experience in owning a tree farm, so I know how to do ditches, build roads, and make everything connect. I believe I'm the best capable of doing this job.
Sorry about that.
No, I don't need the whole 5 minutes. You're good.
Okay. Still got a minute and 36 left.
Cool.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna set it up to 2 minutes now. Okay, so you mentioned that you have welding certification after high school, right? So what is the budget for the county? Do you know what that is right now?
Last time I checked it out, I believe it was about $50 million. They split it up. It could be a lot more than that, but each individual commissioner precinct was about 10 million. That was between the four precincts plus all the other law enforcement we're getting. It's quite a hefty sum.
Okay.
But from what I looked at, the 2026 proposed budget was about 10 million for precinct two. That's what I was focusing on at that point, which is what I'm going to be able to work with.
Okay. You had mentioned that you had the hands-on experience of working around some property that you have and equipment and that sort of thing, and that you've seen people fixing equipment, um, and that you have people that can fix that. Would you, what would you do with the people that are under the employ of Precinct 2 right now? Would you let them go and hire these people, or
Um, Depends on what the job is. I don't know how certified they are, what experience they have in actually fixing this stuff or fixing, let's say, a truck breaks down. I don't know how much hands-on experience they have doing that. They might have some, but not enough.
when you say the people you know, or the
Oh,
people that are currently employed?
the people that are currently employed. I thought that's what you were referring to.
Okay,
If
I just want to be
the
clear.
people that were referring, the people currently employed, I don't know how much experience they have, but I would want them, if they, to be honest with me, if they can fix it, good, work on it. But I want to know how long it's going to take. I don't want you to spend a week working on that. If it's going to take a week for them to fix this one little project, well, I'm going to call somebody that can get it done in a day or so. Call the people that I have faith in because they've worked on stuff for us for years. So I know the work that they do.
Okay. Um, Bob?
So there was a question in there about salaries for the commissioners, and um, I don't know if you followed the salaries in the past and the pay raises.
They're exorbitant.
So do you know how much the commissioner makes right now?
The last time I believe was the 20. Last time I checked it, I think it was like 174,000, something like that. That's just base salary. Of course, they have a couple benefits. You know, if you're in certain positions, you might get a driver, you might have security, but depending on it, just base salary is 174,000. Maybe a little more than that, but in that area.
So do you feel that that's adequate? Do you feel it's too much?
No, I feel that's way too much. That no elected official in this state should make more than the governor.
And the governor's is
150,000.
okay.
And even then, you know, I'm a commissioner. I don't have the entire county under my jurisdiction. I just have one precinct, so even I should make less than the county judge. He's the one that's the main administrator of the entire county, and that should be his. He should be the highest paid employee in this county.
Okay.
So Adrian, you said, talking about issues in the county, you brought up flooding and infrastructure earlier, so I want to kind of focus on that for my first question. Problems include flooding, tackling the rapid growth and the infrastructure associated with that growth, and just the lack of communication with the general public. So let me focus in on flooding. You know, so we are where we are with the infrastructure that we have, and that'd be my first question. What's your thought on how we're going to increase the infrastructure associated with flooding, and then what can we do moving forward from here to mitigate or reduce flooding?
So what we can currently do, there's not a whole lot. It's already we've moved so far. The current commissioners let so much go, let so much development go through that there's not a lot we can do to address that. What we can do is start addressing the future growth that we're going to have and the future flooding that's going to take place. And we can look at, you know, hire engineers or somebody to figure out how we can address the current flooding issue. But moving forward, what we really want to do is work with the developers if they're going to build a neighborhood. We want to have, when they submit their plans, they're responsible for the flooding. They're going to figure out, hey, if they build this here, is it going to flood this neighborhood over here? Is it going to flood this street? Is it going to flood behind them? Where is it going to start flooding that's going to mess it up? And have them address that, tackling that issue. Same with the roads and everything else. They build it. They build the connecting streets. They're the ones that are going to keep these roads paved for. We can determine the time frame of how long they're going to be responsible for it. But let them, when they submit their plans, be the ones to be held accountable. So if something goes wrong, it's not on the county, and they're the ones that need to be responsible for that.
Okay. Are you familiar with are you familiar with retention ponds? So there are calculations that engineers are supposed to be making when you do a development, that there's a certain size retention pond, and a retention pond, the stormwater flows in the retention pond, and then it slowly lets the water out so that you don't get a big gush of water during the storm. But your developers are going to fight you against a larger detention pond to mitigate flooding because it takes lots away.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to handle that? And there are ways of getting around sizing your retention ponds. and that goes to the county engineering office. So what are your thoughts there?
They can fight me on it. They're going to fight. Developers are going to fight no matter what because it's a losing money. They don't have to do insurance. They wouldn't have to. It's required they have to. Make it bigger, force them to actually do it. If they say, oh, this one's big enough, we'll make it build a second one, especially depending on how big they are. One of the big examples is Foster Ridge. I don't know if y'all know where that is off Old Conroe Road. It's a huge development. It floods on the back end of Old Conroe, and there should have been a road that goes through connecting 336, but it floods kind of in that general area. It's a massive traffic buildup. If there's an accident, it's pretty bad. But there's like I think 1 or 2 retention ponds in the entire subdivision. That's a huge. That's over 500 houses in that one little subdivision. They could have more retention ponds. They don't need just one massive one. Do 3 or 4 smaller ones, and you do the same thing with one giant one.
So right now, you've been talking about the commissioner's office and builders and constraining them based on what their plans are and what they're building and whatnot. Back to Kenneth's point, there is a county engineer. Builders have to go through and get a permit to do the building, and it's based on drainage, all the things that he talked about. I don't know if you are aware of that, but that's to prohibit flooding issues and that sort of thing. Have you brought this to the attention of the county and particularly Precinct 2 office about the flooding? Are there, have you brought that to their attention? Is there a group of people that have brought it to his attention and he's just ignoring you guys or what? How does that work?
I know I've brought it up to him, and he says, "Oh, let's talk. I'll get back to you," and never does. I know for a fact that neighborhoods, especially along Old Conroe, especially in Hardin Store, kind of 249 area, and then up 249, 774, that area is Decker Prairie, Rose Hill area. That's expanding rapidly. They're growing a lot out there with neighborhoods. They've addressed the flooding. They've sent messages. They've tried to talk to the commissioner. He just doesn't get back to them. I don't know if I would say he's ignoring them. He very well could be, but he's just not addressing the issues. As I said, Hardin Store needed to be widened or at least repaved 20 years ago, and neither he nor the previous person before him bothered with it. They didn't do it.
So I saw, so on here you said, simple solutions to that problem would be putting their contact information on the website and making sure that, I'll pause that, making sure that if you send out anything, all your contact info is on there, and then someone contacts you, actually getting back to them. So I was wondering if he had contact information. So I went to his website, and is that what you're familiar with? It's a phone number and an email address.
Yes.
So you've gone through that, and you have not gotten replies from that. I mean, it's there.
The email, I don't believe many people get replies from that. The last one I heard was there was a wreck on Old Conroe Road right outside Foster's Ridge, and he sent out an email to all the residents there saying, you're not forgotten. We'll do what we can to fix the issue, but not really giving any plans about it. With the phone number, that's his office phone number. Rich Wheeler and Matt Gray have their personal phone numbers available to the general public. You can contact them directly if a problem. I think that's something, just being open like that, being able to contact me directly would be a solution to the transparency issue.
Yeah. So they have their cell phone numbers.
I don't know if they have it on their website, but I know that Rich Wheeler, every time he gives a speech anywhere, it's always on his little PowerPoint presentations and out there. And Matt Gray is he's an open book. He'll tell you anything.
Well, that can mean several things. Okay.
But you talked about having a savings account rather than having going out for bonds.
Mhm.
Can you explain how that would take place?
Just to clarify, I know that the question you're asking that was on y'all's thing. That was a yes or no answer. There wasn't I couldn't give a description of that one.
Well, you could have, but you didn't.
They didn't offer it on the web. From what I remember, it was just a yes or no button.
Yeah, I don't think
It wasn't. There wasn't a description. It's just yes or no. And I'm always going to err on the side of saving. I don't want to have to spend money or make the general public spend money if they don't have to. If we can save, I'd rather do that. A bond may be necessary in the future. I don't know how much we can save up realistically, how much we can save up if we can get grants from other areas in the state to do this stuff. We can actually have a savings account. That's where I would typically want to be, is just start saving up money for these bigger projects. You know, one of the big ones would be an old Conner Road extension or some bridges on Hardin. There's a small bridge on Hardin store that's going to cost a lot of money. I'd like to save up money to build that instead of do a road bond for it. But I would, as a fiscal conservative, I'll err on the side of wanting to save money rather than just put more debt onto the children and the residents of the county.
So if you're saving money, then that means you're taking taxpayers' dollars and not spending on things you had budgeted for.
Well, we're always going to have some kind of emergency contingency fund. I'm one of the few people that does believe that it's okay for the government to have a savings account. The problem is how much is in it. If we're getting, I'll use the state of Texas, if we're getting them $3 billion a year, that's over taxation. That's a problem. But if we're putting, let's say for a county of our size, $250,000 in a savings account every year, that's not. We can't really do a whole bunch of $250,000. We can do a little bit, not as much as you'd think. That'd be something we could put in there. But if we're putting millions of dollars a year into a savings account, that's a problem. We need to address that.
Okay.
Sticking kind of on infrastructure, so the last road bond that we just passed was split evenly between all 4 precincts. Is that right, or would you do that a different way?
I believe it would be. It's harder to pass a road bond if they don't see the benefit. I see why they did it, but I don't agree with why they did it. The Woodlands really isn't growing to the levels at which Precinct 2 or Precinct 4 are. Precinct 1 has got a lot of growth out there, but it's mostly north of Willis, the Grand Ranch area. But Precinct 2 and Precinct 4, they're shooting up like weeds. There is a lot of stuff, a lot of development, a lot of growth out there. I believe that money should have gone more toward Precincts 2 and 4 rather than splitting evenly amongst Precincts 3 and 1 as well.
Why do you think it was split evenly?
Because they couldn't have get it passed either way. I don't think if they hadn't split it, if you start going to the public and say, hey, we're going to give that side of the county more money than that side, and you guys aren't going to get as much, the people in the not getting as much aren't going to vote for it. And I think it would have failed had they not done that. It was a maneuver to let it pass because they needed it. They feel they needed it, so they wanted it to pass. So they split it evenly.
So what's the outcome of that? If they're going to split stuff evenly, what's the outcome of that road bond?
It means you have to be more fiscally responsible with the bond. You have to actually show. You can't just throw a bunch of lump sum of money out there and say, hey, all 4 of you guys vote for this. All 4 precincts vote for this. You actually have to say, here's why these 2 are getting it. It would have been county commissioners come out and say, hey, Woodlands isn't growing. Precinct 3 isn't expanding as fast as Precinct 2 and 4. I think if you can explain it to the public and be open with why you're giving more money to these 2, it's not saying they're better. It's just saying, hey, there's more growth there. They're going to need it. They're going to need that money a lot more than you guys are.
So it wasn't done on a needs basis. It was done on a let's get it passed basis.
That's what I think it was.
Just as part of that carryover, the corollary to that is the Woodlands is 50 years old, right? And it needs to replace stuff as opposed to building new stuff. So the argument could be made that, hey, we need this to replace old infrastructure. Like I know there's one bridge down by Grogan's Point off of Sawdust, close to where your office was, that they're going to replace. And other stuff. So it kind of leads into, it's not really based on needs. as much, right? It's more based on, hey, you got this, I want the same amount, even though I'm not gonna need as much unless I wanna build a developer road over here in Bender's Landing, which is kind of what they want to do. But let's kind of get into,
If I can, about the age of the woodlands is a big factor, but also a lot of precinct 3. I mean, a vast majority of precinct 3 is the woodlands. And I'm trying to remember, I don't know if the woodlands actually has control of its own roads. I don't know if they do it themselves, or is it okay. So that would have been something that looked into, like the Magnolia controls their own roads. They control certain areas of their roads in their own city that aren't state roads. Since they're a city, Conroe is the same thing. So some of these precincts might have where, notice I really haven't talked about roads in Old Town Magnolia, because that's the problem of the city. If there's a road there, they can come to the county for help, but the city's responsible for paying for it, maintaining it. That's their job. The woodlands, I didn't know. I know that they have a unique standing amongst the state and kind of what their things. I didn't really know if they have control of their own roads, but they do levy taxes. I figured that would go toward road development like that, or infrastructure.
so do you know the difference between a state road and a county road?
Yes, the named roads are Grogan's Mill, Butera, Hardin Store. Those are county-owned roads, and then any county road, CRs, I don't know any county roads around this area, but like County Road 157 or something out, and that's a county road. We maintain that. That is our responsibility. Numbered roads, FM 1488, 2978, 249. Those are TxDOT state-owned roads. They'll be responsible for that.
Okay.
But even in that, I don't understand why if it's going to take them 20 years to do 249, why does the county come in and say, hey, you could do it this way, at least give our input. You could do it this way for cheaper and get it done a lot quicker. I feel that wasn't really something that the current occupant in the office did. So he just kind of let TxDOT do whatever they want, didn't really try to negotiate and talk with them. And 1488 is a big example of that with the medians they put in.
Well, so I might disagree with you there, because the county took 3 miles of 249 and spent county money on it to build it. Now, for whatever reason they did it, I think that's more probably what the focus should be. The fact that that was going to be a state road, state paid for, and it was, except for the 3 miles, which the county took over and made into a toll road.
Which that money is supposed to be used for also for road maintenance, but I don't believe it is.
Yeah, and another reason they did that, and one of the commissioners at that time, son, had done the right of way clearing of that. If you knew that, and then that it was supposed to tie into the Woodlands Parkway extension that the county was gonna
That was
also build.
That was 2014 when the big fight over the wood.
2015.
2015. I hadn't moved to the county yet at that point, but I do. That still, people still talk about that fight to this day.
Right, and because there were developers sitting on that Woodlands Parkway extension that they wanted to take care of and pay for that, but they did take, back to the point, the county did take 3 miles of that road, just to be clear.
And
it wasn't all state, and they claimed it was to do it faster, but if you're building something that's standalone and you don't have what's south of that feeding into it, what's north of it, what good is it, right? You know, the state would have built and paid for the whole thing. Now we've got debt thing hanging around our neck. So anyway, Bob, we only had 6 seconds left.
Well, I could stay on the roads for hours, but
Yeah.
so I want to go back to your first thing about the flooding and not being able to take care of the stuff in the past. There's issues with SJRA not doing their job of cleaning the river and not cleaning the tributaries, which is their responsibility. That still hasn't been done. But I moved here in '97, and there was talk about building a new reservoir in Precinct 2. And the talk was, well, it's going to take 30 years to get built. That would give us water, plus it would help take care of part of the flooding for the northwest part of the county. That nothing's been done since then. And so there are ways to be fixing some of our flooding problems, which that would actually affect everything. But so is that something you would look into? Because the engineering stuff was done years ago. It just needs to be taken the dust off of it and brought back in.
I can't remember who said it, but there was a quote. I think it was probably an actually show I was watching talking about the scope of government and that he's seen kindergarten plays move at more efficiency than the government does. Just a matter of they're moving slow. It's an old lumbering dinosaur that sometimes needs to be pushed along to move. If a reservoir has been planned out and it's still in the county records of something that would have fixed it, it'd be a long time to look at that. I was 2 years old when you talked about that study when you moved here, so I'd look into it to see if it's gonna help and we can do it, and it's not gonna take 30 years to build. Then yeah, maybe we should.
Well, even if it takes 30 years to get built, it would almost be done by now.
It would have.
It didn't take us that long to do Lake Conroe.
When they want something and they can make money off it, they'll do it quickly.
Okay, but as a commissioner, that's your responsibility.
I'll look into it and see it.
But to say that there's nothing that can be done to the past and we need to look forward to the future, there are things that can be done with a lot of things, with the infrastructure as well as the flooding. And those are the two main points that that law enforcement, that commissioners are responsible for, and the tax dollars are for. And yet we build parks and we build libraries and all of this other stuff, and that's all fluff. But when it comes down to it, when you come down to the bottom dollar, you have problems financially. The only thing that you're responsible for is health, welfare, and security.
It's something. It's if it's there, if it's in the county records, look into it. And if it's not, do a new study. We'll figure it. Do a new study if we can do it, efficiently and fiscally responsible, not just completely throw money at a situation and hopefully we can fix it. Let's actually look and see how much it would cost to have the surveys done, everything that's out there. If there still aren't records of it, if the records of it have just completely disappeared from the county, if the records are still there, let's look at it, see where it would be located, see where it would actually the actual pinpoint, and then see how much it would realistically how much it'll cost. Because a big part, we don't have a huge budget. The Precinct 2 doesn't have a massive budget like they do in Harris County. We're about 10 million a year.
Yeah, it wouldn't be just Precinct 2's money. It would be state, it would be federal, and it would be
There'd be other
the entire county. But I'm just trying to get you to think of.
Yeah, a reservoir would be something we could look into, and I'd love to look into that and see. And I didn't even know that. Thank you for pointing that out. That's something I could look into.
We've got building moratorium kind of in Conroe because there's no water. Well, we have plenty of water. If we would have had that built starting in '97, it'd be done.
Probably would have been done this year.
Okay.
Well, hypothetical here for you, Adrian. So let's say someone buys and again, just throwing around numbers, 100 acres of property, and let's just say they subdivide it, and it works out to each lot works out to a couple $1,000, but it's landlocked. And you're a mile off the road. Let's just say there's a dirt road that goes into it, and you know that it's going to take 4 lanes to get in and out of this new subdivision. Who should be paying for that mile worth of road and acquiring the right of way and building that road that's a mile off of an existing county road? What's your thought on how that should go?
Just to clarify, because I kind of got a little bit lost. You're saying a county road, so random county road 240 or something, and then the neighborhood's off of 240, but they have to have a mile extension to get onto 240.
Well, there's a mile to get to the neighborhood.
To get to that
bought this land was super cheap because it was landlocked, but once it gets connected to a road, instead of being worth $2,000 equivalent of a lot, it's worth $50,000 a lot. when it gets developed.
Mhm.
But it has to have that road connection to it.
If it's coming off of that county road, are you saying the county road, something's be done to the road going to the neighborhood?
The road to the neighborhood.
Oh, that should be developers. That should be the developers that are building that one.
Well, to even take that further, let's say that there's a two-lane existing kind of, just dirt culverts on either side, but you know that it's gonna need 4 lanes in and out and proper drainage. Who's gonna pick up that cost?
Need to see how much it would cost first off, and if they're gonna, still would like to put that on developers. They're the ones building it. They're the ones that are requiring us the need to have that road expansion. Maybe they can figure it out, put it into their initial proposal for how much they're going to build. They'll fight it. They're going to. That's what businesses do. They're going to fight against us because they want their whole purpose is to make money, and I want them to make money, but I want them to make it responsibly to where they're not going to be hurting not only the residents they're putting in there, but the existing residents that are already there.
On to that, Adrian, are you aware who is the largest contributor to, from a dollar perspective, to the campaigns of commissioners?
Developers.
Okay?
I've already looked into that.
And who's second?
It would probably be the I had builders, the construction companies.
Second is actually the engineering design firms that do the engineering work for roadways. You know why?
Probably because they want an in with the county commissioner to kind of pad the pockets. You donated to us. Hey, we donate your campaign. Now do what we want. Help us figure out this.
And you know how engineering firms are selected by the commissioner?
I believe it should be a bid system. I don't think it's how it's selected, but it should be an open bid system.
It's against state law to bid out engineering firms. They have to be selected based on qualifications. So how do you get most qualified in Montgomery County?
Who pays you the most money? That's what, at least that's how it's working. If they're not bidding it out, that's ridiculous.
You can't bid it out by state law.
Well, then that's a fault that then our commissioners should be fighting. They want a meritocracy system. You want the best of the best. You want to be able to do whoever can do it cheap, the best, as well as giving it with the best bang for your buck, doing it cheaply. You should be able to bid it out. That's the fault of the state legislator for not addressing that issue. And that's something that maybe we should have worked on 20 years ago. Have, the state legislators. You got our current commissioner and our current state legislator in that area are tight. Why isn't he asked to do that? Could go back to the money issue of that. But that's something we can look into and work with the legislature to figure out. That's ridiculous if it's not bidded out like that. That's crazy.
It's not just developers or engineers. It's professional
Services.
Any professional service. So, to that example that Kent was talking about, building from a county road to a development, and so I guess you agree that the builder would pay for that road, and they maintain it from then on, forever, or how's that work?
Not in perpetuity. One of the issues is like Foster's Ridge. They don't control their own roads. Currently, still the developer, I believe it was D.R. Horton. I could be wrong about the developer out there, but they still maintain roads. They still maintain the subdivision. They still have control over everything. Part of their contract is once the last developer left, he sold his home and left, then the residents of Foster's Ridge would get an HOA and they would control that. So developers will maintain it for a set period, however long they want to put it into their contract they want to maintain it for. And then once they leave, the homeowner association would take over and be responsible for all that. Because you have fees and stuff that they're supposed to deal with that stuff.
So the homeowners would be responsible for the M&O after that in perpetuity.
In perpetuity, and if they eventually decide, hey, they don't want to do that, well, then we can look into maybe your HOA fees will now go to the county to maintain your roads if you're not going to do it. But let the people that are moving and going to be living there and actually doing that, let them be the ones to building it and maintaining it. Let them be the ones to actually keep and maintain those roads.
On a related note, we're talking about, one of the questions was zero-based budget practices for every governmental entity, elected or appointed. You said that that means finding the easiest and cheapest way to do a job while still giving them quality results. And then you said, I will appoint members to a board that share my belief in zero-based budgeting. What board is that?
ESD 10, Montgomery County Emergency Service District, ESD 10. I believe it was ESD 10. I don't know how much y'all know about them. Firefighters out there there's been a problem out in that ESD for Lord knows how many years. They started making some progress out there, and then as soon as someone actually started making progress and talking about the issues and fixing the issues and actually getting on track to fix it, the term came up because they're year appointed yearly. The term came up, and the current commissioner fired her from it and put somebody in there that's just going to rubber stamp everything he wants to do.
Okay, so I was talking more about the county and the overall precinct and zero-based budgeting than just ESD 10. Yeah, I'm aware of what's going on with that, but how would you orchestrate the zero-based budget? And so I think you said in here that the commissioners court, okay, on the county level, the county already does zero-based budgeting.
Mhm.
Okay, so this past year, the employees got a 3.3% increase across the board. Would you consider that zero-based budgeting?
They added it into their budgeting. I would consider that zero-based budgeting, as long as they're not like, oh, we have this, we're not making this much. Oh, we can give them a raise while also having more money. We got more money, so we can give them a raise for it.
Okay, but when you're doing it across the board, it's you're not starting from zero in a particular department that is under your purview. You're just doing a one fell swoop across the deal.
But all of the commissioners all sit down when you discuss a budget. We discuss everything, but it's all based on zero based. When they meet the commissioners, they have their sessions and they talk about the budget. They do their budgeting workshops. It's all based on the zero based budgeting system, and that's stuff I've heard from. Or never actually attended one of these budget meetings, but that's from people currently in office that have said that.
Okay, Bob.
So with the road bonds, would you as commissioner, when you put forth your budget to try to get money for a road bond, would you, and I'm not sure we're getting this recording, would you actually spend the money on the things that you're putting in for that road bond request? Currently, there's no requirement. If you say you want to widen Hard Store Road, for instance, and that's part of your budget, there's nothing requiring you to actually spend that money on that road when the budget's passed. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No, I did not know that was not required. But
and if you go back and look at the money that's been spent on road bonds in the past, you'll find that that was the case, that money was spent that didn't need to be spent.
if we're going to trust, if we're going to go to the citizens and ask them to pass a road bond, putting us into debt that's going to be straddled onto them, like, regardless, all debt is straddled onto the taxpayers. It's just, that feels morally wrong to not do what you're asking them to put money in, to put debt on. I couldn't imagine going to in a business meeting and say, hey, we're going to use the business to go in debt to do this, and then just keep the money for yourselves and do it, and not, they give it to you and then they not use it for that, not use it for what they have expressly gone to and asked for. That's insane to me. So if we have a bond and these road bonds are actually used for that, and actually I create the budget and say we need this and I'm going to use it for this thing, I'm going to do what the voters approve of. If they approve of it, I'm going to do what I can to get that road approved. That's what needs to happen. That's just that's it's just morally wrong to not do that. That is just, to me, it just feels, it feels shady, and just something that someone that is trusted with public funds should be totally opposed to. I can't, that's, I would work to make sure that that's the tax dollars that they're asking us to spend, the debt we're going into, all that money is used responsibly. is used in the manner that I've asked them to spend the money on.
And if you had to deviate from that, would you let them know?
Let them know the reasons why. Yeah, open and transparent about why I have to deviate from this.
Okay.
We have this come up. We have this that needs to happen. I can't do this, but I will get back to fixing this. But I have to deviate some money for this reason. But be open about why we have to. We didn't have enough in this. Whatever reason might come up, but it's not going to be going to slush funding my vacation fund for anything.
Okay.
I'm supposed to be, as a commissioner, as somebody that looks at the budget, looks at the looks at the tax dollars that are coming in. I'm supposed to be a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars. And if I can't be a good steward of the taxpayer dollars, why do I need to be in this position? I want to be a good steward. If I can't be a good steward and I have to lie to keep getting elected, besides the money that you're going to keep getting, which obviously our commissioners get a lot of, why stay in this position? It's not about me. It's about the residents. It's about the kids. It's about the people that live in this community, not my own personal gains, what I can gain from this.
See if I can squeeze in two questions. My first one is, you say that you're for a Doge review for the county. What does that mean to you, Adrian? What do you when you see Doge? What are your inputs and what are your outputs?
So, on the federal level, I was in favor of.
At the county level.
At the county level, it's just a matter of putting people, specifically business leaders, some of the business leaders out there. I don't know if y'all know him, Robert Marling. He's a tremendous guy. I think he's incredibly smart. He's somebody that could look at what's going on with the county and see where waste, fraud, and abuse is. And putting someone like him, not him specifically, but people like him on this Doge review board to look over and then submit a proposal of what waste is going to the commissioner's court. And if we have one, which I hope the other commissioners, they seem like they would be in favor of it, we put it out there and they come to us with recommendations and say, hey, you got this, you should cut this and we can save this much money. Implement those changes. But again, I'm also one of five. So I can't do anything unilaterally except involving my own precinct. I have to have the support of other commissioners.
Do you have a thought in your head of what that matrix would look like on the back end of what the Doge purpose would be? I mean, what does that look like? I mean, how do you know? Maybe we're perfect.
We might be. That's the point of Doge. That has to be what their point would be to find this stuff out.
Well, what are you comparing to? I guess. How do you know if you're up here or down here or just right? How do you know that?
I don't. That's the whole point of a board, is to figure that out. They're the ones that would determine that.
Okay.
It's not me that's going to make that decision. It's them. We appoint them. They come back to us and they say, "You guys are perfect. Here's your A+ rating for your budget. You're absolutely perfect. Nothing wrong."
Okay.
They gave us that proposal. They fail us. We figure out why they failed us.
My second question to try and wrap up here is, want to know your philosophy on what is a government function and what is not a government function. For instance, we just had on the ballot this Alzheimer's thing, right? Do you think that the state having an Alzheimer's fund is something that the state should be, by golly, we need to fix this? Or what are your thoughts on Alzheimer's? And then I'm going to ask you, if I can, a drill down question.
No, I don't believe that the Alzheimer's, prior to this election, Alzheimer's was not a function of government. It shouldn't have been a function of government. They basically gave it to themselves when they proposed constitutional amendment. So no, I'm not in favor of that. Functions of government, the very simplistic version of it is the government's responsibility is to maintain public security, which would be police, courts, and firefighters, and then roads, building roads.
So we have in here, the community has certain responsibilities such as libraries, community centers. Should the county be responsible for libraries and community centers? Is that a function of government?
It's not a function of government, it's something we gave to ourselves. I don't think it's, as long as we're not overspending on it, it's not a bad thing. If we have a little bit of money here to allow for the education of children in libraries, I think that's a good thing. Libraries are, as much as they have come in controversy over the past few years, as a overview bubble, they're good for the general public. There's problems that you can address in it, but I do think that's a good thing. Community centers, it's a way for us to make some money. That's also a way they, pay a little bit.
Last thing, so it says here that you would not abstain from taxpayer funds going to nonprofits. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Certain functions are required by state law. Whether it's a function of government that's required, whether I believe that's actually a function of government is another topic. But by state law, we are required to do some things. One of the things is they donate some money to the Montgomery County Food Bank. I can't remember the actual statute. There's a statute in Texas state law that says the counties have to provide emergency food services to the general population. So, as much as I don't want government funds going to private charities, if a private charity can do a job better than the government, and the government is required by law to do that certain job this charity is doing, why not get the people that are better at spending that money better at doing that job? It also takes a little bit off of us. We don't have to pay for infrastructure, anything like that. We just pay for the organization to be done with it. Let them be the ones to handle it. It's a balancing act that we have to really work to balance. But if we're required to pay for it, my view is state law says we have to. If we don't, we can get in trouble. Private charity is better to do it than the government is. And that's generally my philosophy: is the government is not good at doing really anything, so let the private industries do it better than we can.
Profit's a little different than a private business, but as we've
Yeah.
seen for sure at the federal level and at the state level.
There's a difference between a nonprofit and a private charity, but you know,
So, one of the questions was, how will you improve transparency and access to financial and other records for the public? What exactly do you think needs to be put? And you said to provide charts and graphs.
Mhm.
What from the budget related to this question do you think needs to be put in chart and graphs onto a website for people to review?
I don't know if have y'all looked at the current models they have for the county budget, like the 400 something page report of like every little spending. It's a lot of information to digest for one person. I think that instead of putting it like this line item here is going to cost this much, you say, well, break that down. That's a lot of money for people to fathom. $150 million, a lot of money for people to fathom, to look at and see. Break that down even further. Break that down into easily digestible charts and graphs. People like charts and graphs. I don't know what it is. The general public seems to like that. Put it on something where they can click through. They can do a PDF. They can search for it and say, hey, we're spending this much. Type it in. We're concerned about this. It shows up, gives them directly where they need to go. Just things like that. Putting that budget into easily digestible information for the general public. And if they want to do deep dive, there are people that like to deep dive into this information. Most people don't care. To be honest, most people do not care about. They'll see a big number and go, okay, they don't need to know the ins and outs of every little detail. But for those that do want to do that, you make it easier for them to find. You make it easy. Their job's a little bit easier instead of having to wade through mountains of paperwork and all this stuff. Just make it easily digestible. Go online. You can look it up. Something simple as that.
So have you said you hadn't been to a budget meeting before. Have you seen the budget? They're pretty thick, like you said, and they are presented in charts.
They are presented in charts, but there's still like a lot of information that I looked at. The law enforcement, it didn't break down fully everything that I would want addressed. It just said we have a general fund. There's like 4 pages of law enforcement. What law enforcement? Here's what they asked for. Here's what they got. Here's what we can give them. Here's this discretionary, but it doesn't break it down. You know, how much are we spending on equipment? How much are we spending on meal services, or just things that law enforcement need? It's not breaking it down easily. But on something like that, the main budget, that can be something pretty big. That can be something that's not meant to be for the people that don't really pay that much attention. They're not going to care. They're not going to deep dive it. It's for the people like you guys that would deep dive into it. You make the easier transparency. You do something like the charts and graphs on the website. You make that more accessible and easier to get for the people that actually want to deep dive it. So there's no reason to waste a bunch of time and money doing something if no one's going to look at it.
So true, and most people won't, but there's a cost to that,
Mhm.
you know, from that standpoint. do you think on a road bond, back to that, do you think enough information was provided? Because we're talking about transparency here, in this last road bond. Because they have a map, they have all the roads that, were gonna be either repaired or built out or whatever. And they got a quarter of the money that was allocated, right, 120 million. Is that enough to go off of?
The information they provided, I don't I don't think it is for the people that are going to be. It's not going to be people like us, the people that are actually telling people, "Hey, go out and vote." The ones that are saying, "Hey, you need to vote on this, you need to vote again." I don't think they get enough information for us, but for the everyday common folk, you go in there, you read it, and they can easily look at the plans. For them, yeah, I think that was enough information. I mean, they passed it, didn't they? That wasn't enough information for them to go off of it. It's just a matter of
Maybe
you.
what they're counting on.
That's kind of what
Right?
that's kind of what they're counting on. But again, you're going to have people when you start
But that
go.
doesn't address transparency.
It doesn't. It doesn't just. But when you start, the point is to be transparent. I want to be transparent, and I'll do what it takes, even if people aren't going to pay attention. It's a lot of work that I'm going to have to put in to look at that and say, hey, this is. We have 250,000 roughly people in my precinct, and only 5 of them did a deep dive into the budget. It's a lot of work I have to put into it, but that's the point. Don't want them to say I didn't try. That's the point. I don't want them to say that I didn't have it available.
So again, what does it look like on a budget for a bond, a road bond like that? How much information would you have in there? Is it just a colored road and then a total amount? Hey, we got 120 million. That's what I need to fix all this. Is that enough?
I think it should be a breakdown. You have the colored road, it's a good start. Colored road, and then this much for caliche or gravel, this much for the actual asphalt, this much for labor and cost, this much for the maintenance of that. Overall, I think
for each road.
I think are you talking about putting it on the ballot or just like in general if they go to the website and look at it, here's
Go to
that.
The
website, I think that should be everything should be broken down. You're going to have a price tag on everything. How much is it going to cost for trucking costs and fuel costs? All of that should be broken down to the, and everything should be added up to the total cost of that. And you should be able to see that. So you're knowing like, oh, maybe we don't need to pay. Again, I'm just giving a rough just number here. We don't need to give 35,000 for food services for this crew. Let them go out and get their own lunches. They don't need to. We don't need to provide it for them.
So what if they didn't do a study? What
Then
I mean, what if they
shouldn't even
didn't do a study on the road to know what the breakdown on caliche and
it shouldn't be
sand and gravel and all that?
it shouldn't be proposed. If they can't give you a finite number and an actual breakdown of it, don't propose it. Don't bother putting it in the website. Don't bother trying to pass it because you're not giving enough information to the general public.
Okay, Bob. We've got about 5 or 10 minutes.
If y'all need to go longer, I'll go longer. I don't mind.
That's good.
So, did you understand the question about requiring a supermajority vote to approve a bond?
I think I did when you were asking it. You were asking supermajority, meaning you needed, well, I believe it would be 4 of the commissioners' court to vote in favor of it.
That's the commission to get it out of commissioner's court to put it onto the ballot. Would you require a supermajority of the commissioners to get it onto the ballot?
I think that would be something to look forward to. I think that would be something we can look into to see how much. I mean, typically I'm going to vote against most bond proposals unless they can give me a like we said, a good budget breakdown of everything that's going to need to require for it. So I would basically be a no vote at that point. As long as the other 3 or the 4 team up and say, hey, we're going to do this, they can bypass me. Mm-hmm. I think a supermajority would be a good working majority to get something like this passed.
To move it to the ballot.
To move it to the ballot. I was confused because you did ask that if it was a supermajority of the voters have to approve it. Where I thought you were asking that question, not necessarily for the
Get it onto the ballot.
get it onto the ballot makes that I would be in favor of. But if you were talking a supermajority for the people passing,
Mhm.
I don't think that's
Okay.
something we should do.
Fair enough. Have you got any ideas on some things within the county that you believe could be privatized to save money or privatized, outsourced, whatever term you want to use? You got any ideas?
I think we do privatize. I think one of the things we do is the health and human services is already kind of outsourced to different organizations. Um, Other than that, most of it is maybe we could look into the library costs and the community centers. Maybe that can be somebody owned by somebody else. They can privatize that. It's just have to look, and I really don't have a huge idea because most of what it's going to be focusing on is already county stuff. The roads and the bridges are supposed to be that's part of the function of government. But maybe some of the smaller stuff, libraries, community centers could be privatized.
If you privatized them, that's gonna come out of the budget, correct? So the budget's gonna pay for it anyway.
If we're not required by law to pay for libraries, then we
We're
can
not.
then privatize it. Why should it come out of our budget? Let libraries figure it out.
We're not required to have Meals on Wheels. There's no legislation requiring it. But we're funding it through tax dollars.
Listen, that's a good thing Doge would look into then. If that's not required by law, if we're not required to do it, then why are we doing it? Figure out what benefit benefit does it provide?
We're not required to have public parks.
We're not required to
maintain those.
We are not required to have those. That's just a fun thing for us to do.
So then you would get rid of all of this.
I don't want to get rid of parks. I actually have kids. I like them going to the parks. I like them doing that stuff. It's something we can look into, maybe privatizing and figuring it out, but something we can look into.
Which leads to another question, my friend, and so probably my last question is, so let's say state law allows homosexual marriage. God's law does not allow homosexual marriage. Where do you stand on that? If it's in state law, what do you follow?
Well, it's only a state law because the Supreme Court pushes. The Supreme Court can't implement laws or pass that.
Right.
But I understand the premise of your question. I've been opposed to same-sex marriage. It's one of the issues that got me into politics when Obama started pushing that. It's one of the things I fought against. I'm not in favor of that being done, and that's an argument for the JPs. The county, maybe we can do. I'm not really sure if we can require that the county clerk reject these licenses. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a function of ours or not.
I'm not. I was asking your personal point of view. I wasn't asking.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally opposed to it. As a practicing Christian, I'm opposed to same-sex marriage. I don't think that it should be something that we celebrate or even allow our children to do in the Pride festivals. Allow children to be around. I want to see that walking down the street in the middle of June when I take my kids to the park.
If a JP asked you, what should I do? How would you advise him?
JP, I would tell him no. But then again, I've talked to other JPs about this. One of the functions is if you do a marriage license once, regardless, same sex or not, you have to do all marriages. And so I think that's just a function that should be something that the JPs decide. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But then they can't turn around and do that. They can't turn around and do regular or true marriage and then do the same-sex marriage. They can't do that. That would be a violation of judicial code, and we may be able to defend them in the courts of law, but I don't know if the Supreme Court would allow that. But I think that's a decision that the JPs have to make.
Fair enough.
One more question. Would you put the 10 Commandments in all county buildings and Precinct 2, including libraries?
I believe that's something we should do. It shouldn't cost that much to put a picture of the 10 Commandments in each of the county buildings.
I don't think it's a question of cost. I think it's a question.
Well, again, everything has a cost to it. I personally am in favor of it. I love it. I think it's great. I would love to see the Ten Commandments plastered all over everything. I think if cost was effective, now let's put a big mural of it in front of the Commissioners Court building.
Okay. All right. Anybody else got one? Done?
In regard to the Ten Commandments, though, I did actually have a conversation with some school board members in Conroe who were hesitant, I would say, about putting the Ten Commandments in public schools. If people are willing to sit down and research and learn this stuff, they'll learn that the only people opposed to the Ten Commandments being in buildings are radical militant atheists. It's not Christians and Jews. Obviously, we come from the same kind of background. The religions come from the same background. They believe in the Ten Commandments. They treat them with the reverence that they should. Muslims, even in that, Islam still has a basis in the Abrahamic religions, so they still believe in the Ten Commandments, maybe not as divine as the Christians and Jews do. And then even Hindus and Buddhists still see Jesus as a teacher, as somebody that was a great teacher. He wasn't. They don't see him as divine, like the Christians do, and that area of life. But they still see him as a teacher, and they still believe the Ten Commandments are good lessons for moral life. So if people believe that, they're not offended, as some people would like to say. Why not put them in there? The only people that are going to care are the militant atheists, and they're always the loudest and the most outspoken. What's the old saying? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I don't. Militant atheists come after me. You can't get mad if you don't believe in something. Why would you get mad? Because you don't want your kids to see it? Get over it. Shut up. You don't even believe in religion. Get over it.
What if they sue you?
They sue me. Well, we're currently involved in a lawsuit now. They're gonna. How many times has Wayne Mack been sued for his praying before a commissioner's court building, before his praying of the opening of his court? They're gonna sue anyways. We have a county attorney that's meant to defend stuff like that.
You think it'd be up to the county attorney to defend that?
That would be a county attorney decision. It's the same thing with the current library. The law. I don't know if the lawsuit's been settled, but when they fired the librarian at the beginning of the year, removed her for I believe it was negligence of duty, not negligence of duty. I can't remember what the actual legal term was. It she was fired for not doing her job properly, not following the mandate set by the commissioner's court, and she sued 4 of the 5 commissioners, and she sued all the ones that voted in favor of him. County attorney's handling that. Surprisingly, that was a defense of family values, not putting LGBT content in the children's sections of libraries. They asked her to remove it. She refused. She was fired because she wouldn't follow the rules that they set forth, and she sued them for wrongful termination. Surprisingly, the only one she didn't sue was the current occupant of my office, the office I'm seeking. Why? He voted against it. That's something so simple that you can stand on principle. It's a moralistic issue. You stand on believe in family. You believe in your Christian principles. You can't stand up when kids are being threatened with LGBT content in the kids section of a library. You can't fire the person that's putting that in there or not removing it when told. That's ridiculous. But yes, the county attorney's handling something like that. I believe that would be a county attorney issue if they were to sue me.
Okay, if you want to, now's the time to take up 5 minutes on your closing, and we'll wrap it up.
Appreciate y'all coming in on Saturday. I know that's people want to spend time with their families and stuff, and it's also college football. I know LSU's got a big game today as well. But I appreciate y'all letting me speak, letting me come out here and tell you my ideas. I believe that my background, the work that I've put in since I was 13 years old, plus all the information that I've accumulated over my years of being employed, years of working in multiple industries, makes me equipped to be your county commissioner. There is a little bit I still need to learn, but I'm willing to take as much time as necessary to learn this stuff, because at the end of the day, this is about the citizens of Montgomery County. This is about the citizens of Precinct 2. This is about the people that are paying the taxes. They're raising their families here. They're growing up. They're moving. They want to stay in this county. And it's my job to make sure that they continue to live in a community that they love, they want to stay in, and they want to raise their kids in. That works with the flooding, makes sure they're not getting their houses flooded out every single time there's a rainstorm, making sure that their roads aren't backed up for 4 hours because there's a wreck because you can't turn around and go down a different road. Just simple solutions can be found a way if we're willing to actually sit down and talk with it and work with people. I hope that's enough information. I hope I've given enough information and the questions have been mind opening enough that people hear what I truly believe. And I hope that I can earn their support.
All righty. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it and good luck in your campaign.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.